Many thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Business Week here on Arise News. I'm joined now by Lawrence Amadi, who is partner and head Tech Risk KPMG Africa, to review some of our top stories in more detail. Good morning to you, Lawrence. Many thanks for joining us on Business Week. Always great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Ari. Thank you so much.
Right.
Good to be back.
Absolutely. Well, let's begin with, we have quite a few to get through. Let's begin with Microsoft reaching a $4 trillion market capitalization. NVIDIA, of course, has taken this place for quite a bit. So, Microsoft is joining. What can we make of this?
Okay, so I think the big tech, like they call themselves, they just love this trillion club. When it was a trillion, made a lot of noise. Apple was in there, Microsoft was in there, NVIDIA was in there. But now NVIDIA is pulling away really quickly. Yeah. And it's on the back of the chip, intelligent chips, which powered IoT, and also the AI components, to their business. So now, if you just consider the fact that Microsoft, who's really transformed the business with the open AI partnership, Azure, and a lot of the co-pilot journey, I think that's really transforming the business, and it tells you that the future will be a lot more automated.
Right, so there's so much more we can expect from
100%.
this. I mean, you just alluded to Azure Cloud. Of course, if we look at the enterprise and consumer offerings, is this what's driving it predominantly, or are there other areas that we could be looking at?
So it's the innovation in the Azure. They've got 400 plus data centers in 70 regions. No company matches that, today. If you look at the devices that's been rolled out, laptop-wise, Microsoft is literally on 85% plus on those devices. So the dominance, I reckon, is going to be around for a while. Bill Gates was in the country, splashed about $30 billion plus on healthcare digitization. It just tells you that, look, the reason he can give back so much is getting into the bank account.
Right. Well, I mean, very great stuff for Microsoft there. And of course, we will have to wait and see how long this has been held on, but a very great development. But let's look at Nintendo doubling its quarterly revenue with Switch 2 sales, hitting 5.8 million units. What's driving this? What's contributing to Nintendo's profitability?
Okay, so I think in March, Rotos and I analyzed the Africa Games report.
Yes.
And we did say that the games industry is way bigger than the movie and music industry combined. So it tells you how much people are actually locked in. So Activision Blizzard, if you look at Call of Duty, Sony, PlayStation, there's a lot of traffic or traction in the direction. For Nintendo, a lot of parents, end up buying these devices for their kids, and the kids actually are hungry for the newer ones. So got released in June, and by end of July, 5.8 million units sold globally. That's like knocking on what Apple would sell when they release a new version.
Wow.
So that's quite impressive.
That's extremely impressive.
100%.
So there is pretty much a demand for this. And I say this because it's not the most obvious. When you think gaming, you're not thinking this is competitive with those other entertainment sectors you just mentioned. Are you a gamer yourself?
So my kids are gamers.
Okay.
So I invest quite a bit also, and I'm sure myself.
So you're contributing to this.
Of course. my purchases is added to that. But I'd say most kids love to compete. And the fact that, high scores, bragging rights are usually the things that foil gaming, and that's why these numbers are going up.
All right, very interesting for Nintendo there. Let's look at Tesla next, signing a $16.5 billion chip contract with Samsung Electronics. What can we make of this, especially for Tesla? Is this a favorable move?
So it's interesting that Elon Musk decides to go with Samsung.
Very interesting.
Because when we think about chip production, NVIDIA and Intel are the two names that jump at you. But I think he's chosen Samsung for strategic reasons. Samsung Electronic. He's had a tough run-in with Mr. Trump. And I think maybe learned a big lesson that do not fight the federal government. You don't win. But I reckon this deal is potentially, him looking at the humanoids that he's going to roll out in future, the self-driving cars that he's going to roll out, and I think, for Tesla.
So this could potentially be a very, very strategic move for Tesla.
It could be a game changer for Mr. Musk.
And what about Samsung Electronics? In what ways are they?
So Samsung have struggled in the last few years. I think this is really good for them. Their share numbers up, the revenues are also up. And I see generally, almost all the big tech players, the numbers are up in 2025. In 2024, it looked like a slow start. Samsung lost the war to Apple, a while ago. So I reckon that this deal also just helps them start getting back in the game.
So this is a win-win for both parties, it appears.
100% win-win. And Musk says the big plant that will manufacture this is down the road from where he lives. So he's going to be walking down to this factory to go check things himself.
All right, so pretty convenient as well. What more could you ask for, right? Isn't it? Well, let's come back here to Nigeria. Let's look at MTN Nigeria sustaining profit post pre-tax profit of 419.613 billion naira. Very great for MTN, considering what has happened in the last 2 years. If we have to be a little more granular about it. What can we make of this?
MTN finished with a loss in 2024, over 400 billion naira loss. And early this year, KPMG was contracted to conducting a sustainability study for the telecoms industry. I think that study, in many ways, helped the telcos relook at their tariffs, and some resurgence started in Q1. If I look at the numbers today, half-year performance, they are 622 billion, up pre-tax profit, which is phenomenal. The kind of numbers they're pulling today, I think it's going to help the telco industry survive. And MTN, most Nigerians don't give them enough credit. They're supporting virtually every facet of our economy. Healthcare, sports, they're sponsoring the Super Eagles, the Falcons. So I reckon that there's a social good in here that is also good for them to,
But what's driving this turnaround? Coming from such a huge loss.
Yeah.
And you highlighting the fact that, there've been a major eye when it comes to sponsorships, which would suggest profitability or some sort of liquidity. What's driving this turnaround predominantly?
So they had to unbundle the tariffs. So those tariffs, I think for the last 8 years, had not been changed or touched. So the ability to then revise those rates have helped them just start seeing a lot more benefits. So if you look at your data charges, if you're active on TikTok, Instagram, and the likes, the charging before probably seemed suboptimal, and they've relooked all of those charges, and data revenue is up, voice revenue is up, and value-added services also coming up.
Right, very interesting. And of course, I would imagine that MTN is going to keep this momentum going now that they understand where the gaps are. I think we have just very few minutes left. Let's look at data breach, as at 150,000 Nigerian accounts being compromised in the half year 2025. What should we know about this? Of course, it's a report from Surfshark, a cybersecurity firm.
So it's interesting. Surfshark is a Europe-based cybersecurity and VPN service provider. I reckon these numbers are numbers that they've pulled out from, their analysis. When we look at the local reports, NABES, if you look at the switches and what's coming out of the switches, you tend to feel that number might be higher. Customers need to be constantly educated. I've got parents who sometimes, would get random texts, and if no one is educating them enough, they click on these things and they get into trouble. Today, we have increasingly put a lot of personal data out there. Most of us, when we need to sign into our internet banking, we use biometrics, is that your face or something, and all of that data in the wrong hands, just means a lot more trouble. So I reckon the number might be higher. I think the fraud incidents in the banking industry today is also at all-time high.
All right, so you're disputing even what the data is, which is not a good thing, unfortunately,
not
right, for us.
Thing, yes.
And hopefully there's some stop gaps that we can discuss very quickly in terms of mitigating.
So very good point, Awi. I think the conversation on cybersecurity and consumer awareness, we can't underplay. We talk about red team assessment a lot. Red team, blue team is you intentionally trying to either hack your system, brute force your system, or just create a disruption in your system. And then you have a blue team that should essentially drive the restoration, recovery, or immediate response. And I think it's really key that most organizations just increasingly focus on the cybersecurity strategy.
Right. Do you believe that enough organizations are aware of that? Is that sensitization there? Or are there efforts being made, but they are also, extenuating circumstances that are not allowing for it to flow?
I think we can do more. And by we, I mean the Big Four community. I think we can certainly push out a lot more awareness. Most of the boards understand the message. Most senior management also understand it. Sometimes it's the spend or the share amount involved, that makes this prohibitive sometimes. But it's an important message. And they've got to just realize that they need to do it.
Right, that's a very important point. It's quite capital intensive a process, so that's going to play a role as well. If you joined us midway, I've been chatting with Lawrence Amadi, with partner and head tech risk KPMG Africa. Lawrence, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again very soon.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.